What's up, guys? It's your man, Donovan Sharp, and welcome to this edition of the Sharp Reality Live. Follow me on Twitter at Donovan_Sharp, and be sure to visit donovansharp.com to listen to all podcast episodes. You can also find them on SoundCloud, iTunes, and of course, right here on YouTube. You guys can support the show by bookmarking the Amazon link in the sidebar of our homepage. Do all of your Amazon shopping through that link, and you will be supporting the show at absolutely zero cost to you. So it's a good way to do that. And of course, you can always drop a few bucks in the tip jar at the bottom right. So let's get to it, guys. My special guest today is the top dog over at Pill Reddit. He gets the most upvotes. He gets the most views. He wields a tremendous amount of influence over there because, I mean, quite simply, he knows his shit. He's written countless articles on game, attraction, keeping your woman in line, fitness, and so forth. He is also a personal trainer, so he's a good resource in terms of physical fitness. Our very first conversation on the phone with this guy lasted 2.5 hours, and it was clear to me that his knowledge was as advertised. I'm talking about none other than Red Pill superstar GayLubeOil. GLO, how you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. Great Saturday morning today, and really excited about coming on your program.
Good, yeah. I definitely thank you for taking the time out to join us, because it's like I've frequented the Red Pill Reddit for quite a while, for years and years and years, and I've seen plenty of your articles. And the more you read, you kind of have to build sort of a cred. You have to understand. People aren't just going to follow you and listen to what you say. They have to know what you're talking about in terms of how life works with the red pill, with game, physical attraction, physical fitness, and so forth. One thing that I always ask first-time guests, and you and I have discussed this on the phone, but I want our listeners to sort of hear about how you came to find the red pill, because most men like myself, we find the red pill through heartbreak or sexual frustration, but your journey to the red pill and being where you are now was atypical in that respect. So talk to me about how you found the red pill, how you started writing for Red Pill Reddit, and how all of that got started for you.
Okay, so a lot of people come to the red pill, maybe after a breakup, or they found out that their girl's doing something shady. Me personally, I never really had problems with girls, and I was just always pretty athletic. I had it figured out at around 19, but I started personal training in college, and I realized that I really needed game to keep women in line. Let's say an 18 to 20-year-old girl, she's going to be pretty chill. She's going to be mellow. But, a 30-year-old woman, who comes in for personal training, she's going to start shit testing right away. She's going to try and figure out who's boss. So that's where I learned all of my game from. And it's kind of like keeping a harem of women. It's strange, but that's where the majority of my female expertise originates.
Okay, yeah. Talk to me a little bit, because you mentioned some. Obviously, you're big into physical fitness. You're a personal trainer. You have multiple clients. Talk to me about how being a personal trainer. Talk to me how that dynamic relates to gaming women, keeping your women in line outside of the gym.
Well, if you want to be a personal trainer, you have to lead her. You lead her, lead him. They want to feel good, doing what you say, and you have to inspire a certain kind of confidence. The other thing, in order to show exercise, you have to touch people. So if you're a nerd and you're hesitant about, oh, do I touch her? Do I not touch her? It's not going to go well. It's kind of like if you approach that, if you have that mindset with a dog, it's not going to end well, because the dog will sense your weakness and then, be kind of creeped out by you. So, and the other thing is, a lot of these PUA guys, they go through a lot of women. And that's how they learn about it. But I'm always more of a relationship kind of dude. So, the way I got all that experience was personal training, because that allowed me to really meet a lot of women, on an intimate basis, very quickly.
Okay. Yeah, you seem to be more of a proponent. A lot of red pill guys out there, myself included, we talk about fucking girls and and going through a lot of women, and you have to cut your teeth and get your teeth wet and experience. It sounds to me like you are more in favor of the long-term relationship or having a relationship of consequence with one girl rather than fucking a bunch of chicks at the same time. Am I getting that right, or is it a little bit different?
I think it's a better fit for me. One, because it allows me to pursue my fitness better. But the other thing, I get really bored by basic bitches very quickly, and so I just can't do it. They talk, and it's very difficult for me to you know have my eyes open and not give off this vibe like I want to shoot myself in the face. So I just, if I was more tolerant to them, perhaps I could have had sex with more women. But I just they start talking about I don't know, Rihanna or Beyonce or something like that, and I want it all to end.
Right, or the Kardashians or whatever. That's that in my experience. And you're like, I'll be 40 years old in August. You're obviously much younger than I am. But I think that in my early red pill days, when I first discovered the red pill, for me it was all about pussy, because I'd never really gotten pussy at a high rate before, at least not quality pussy. So when I found the red pill and figured out how to be successful with women, that's what it was all about. But it's funny, man. The more sex you have with women, the more women you go through, the more you begin to realize that they really are all the same. They don't really have much to bring to the table outside of arm candy and sex. And after a while, and guys may think that, oh, well, man, I mean, having too many women, that's a great problem to have. And they may be right, but at the end of the day, it's always better to have one quality woman or one woman that you're working on rather than sleeping with 10 women, because it's more time, it's more effort, it's more money. And in your case, it's just a big fucking headache.
Yeah, it's a mess. And also, if you're in the fitness industry, you want to maintain a good body, because no one's gonna take you seriously. If you're at it all the time partying and drinking, no one's gonna buy from you. And just that stability is really good for your body, and not looking like a fat sack of shit.
Right. Right, exactly. I mean, you can't have 38% body fat and be a personal trainer. That obviously is going to kill your credibility. Let me take a turn here, and we'll definitely get back to running your woman and things of that nature. One of the things that stuck out to me during our conversation is that you, as a white guy, you had a black girlfriend in college for quite a while. So I'd like to start there. Talk to me about your experience with her, how you two met, what the dynamic was like. Do you have success with black women still? Just sort of talk to me about that whole experience in terms of you as a white guy dating a black woman.
Okay, well, I came to the United States from Russia in 1995, and it was kind of an interesting, experience trying to find myself, because obviously I look like the white Americans here, but I started realizing that the Anglo-American cultures, it's different than the European culture. It's its own thing, and so I felt that I didn't have that much similarity culturally with white girls as much as I did, with other women. We just didn't see the world the same place. And also really white girls are really indoctrinated into the whole, feminist thing. They will just completely absorb it. So, I was always down to, date everyone. And of all places, I met this girl in my Russian class, and we were dating for 3 years, and it was white guy black girl is the rarest couple, according to
Absolutely.
So and this is in a very liberal city, so even I guess because it's so rare, um I guess because it's so rare, like if you're a white guy dating a black girl, everyone's going to look at you. Usually as a white man, you don't get any attention from black people at all. They just kind of walk past you. But if you're with a
Right.
black girl, they will notice you. And not only do they notice you, they assess you. Like, who is this guy? What is he doing? Is he a bitch? And I think one of the reasons why I even that could even happen was because I was muscular, and I feel that black people
Sure.
are really afraid of dating the nerdy white guy. I think for black women, that's they're interested in white men, but they don't want the stigma of the it's almost the Dave Chappelle white person impression. Uh,
Right. That's exactly right. How long did you date this girl? Was it, I mean, because I forget, I think you told me 2 or 3 years
yeah,
maybe, or
2.5 years.
okay. Oh wow. So for a while. Okay, very nice. What did you tell me about what you learned about black girls, or tell me what you learned from her. What did that experience teach you? I guess about other women. I mean, does this particular chick, does she have similarities to other women you've dated? I mean, what were some things that you learned about black women with regards to dating or fucking them that you didn't know before you actually started dating this chick?
I think you can't understand an ethnicity until you have sex with them and until you meet their family. Like there's until you've reached that intimacy, this you just don't get a lot of insider information. So the first thing is like black girl hair, right? And it's this whole
Right.
it's this whole thing. And they straighten their hair, it's so expensive, it like breaks off. They compete with other women about who has the best hair, obsessed with Michelle Obama. It's a real struggle. Um, and that's that was like I guess one of the interesting things about dating outside your race is that it's always interesting because you were completely not exposed to this. So the black girl hair conversation was fascinating. I mean, at one point there was horse shampoo in my bathroom, and
Oh my God. Horse shampoo.
like mane and tail, horse shampoo, and I was like, okay, like you guys use horse shampoo? I mean, I don't. Is that good? And then, like I found out that it's like a common thing, and I don't know. Like I told my friends, they like I don't know, and that was the only way I could figure it out, right? Like there's no
Sure.
other, um, and I guess it, what was I gonna say? Like if you date a black girl, you are known as the white guy who is dating the black girl. Like that is,
Right.
as far as everyone, that is your identity. And but I mean, if you date an Asian girl, no one cares. And if you date a Hispanic girl, no one cares. It's just black girls.
You
So
know, it's funny you should say that, because as a white guy who dated a black girl, your sexual market value, your SMV, doesn't. As a matter of fact, it probably goes up a little bit, because now black girls are like, oh, this white guy is dating a black woman, so if I'm attractive enough, he's going to date me. Whereas if you switch genders and switch colors, if a white girl is seen with a black guy, she is now. Now here's a question I'd like to ask you, as a black, just along those same lines, as a white guy. Okay, I'm a black guy, so if you see me walking down the street with a white girl and she is hot, you as a white guy, is she automatically off limits, or does it not matter to you because because obviously you're a good strong guy, you've got red pill game? Or is she radioactive at that point? Or if you see her again and she's not with me, are you going to spit game at her? What's your stance on that?
I mean, I have no interest in American white women. I mean, I don't. Period. I just culturally they're really different for me, and I just really dislike conversation with them. So I exclusively date everything else. If
Okay.
if she's
All right.
Russian,
Yeah.
I don't see white women as part of my race. I see Russian women as part of my race.
How are Russian women different from America? I mean, aside from the obvious, what are some of the differences between Russian women and white American women that sets them apart from each other? What are some of the main things that keep you away from American women in that regard?
Oh, Russian women are more group oriented. There's less of that individualism, And so, American women are always flashing their rights in your face. Oh, I have a right to do this. I have a right to do that. They don't see you themselves as a part of a team. And so it's this ongoing thing where I don't know. It's like the American Revolution in New England, and they're constantly trying to break away, and no taxes for them, and freedom and independence. And at that point, it's like, are you my girlfriend? Like why do you need all these rights and freedoms? So whereas a Russian girl, or really a Hispanic girl, or pretty much anyone else, they're if you lead them, they will see, that they're a part of the team. There's group accomplishments, and they're not constantly trying to assert their independence and wave the flag of liberty.
It's I agree with you 100% in that regard. What our society, what American culture, Western culture, what we haven't figured out as a culture is that feminism has failed, because the more we give women, the more they want, and the less the worse off they become. The more we give them, the more they want. They don't behave themselves well. They're fat, they're slutty, and then the first thing they want to do, just like you said, is wave, I have a right to do this. Something else that you said got my attention is that they seem very intent on not being submissive. I don't belong to a man. I don't need a man for anything. I want you, but I don't need you. And, to women who say that, listen, wanting and needing a man doesn't make you weak. It makes you a woman. This is how you guys are designed. And listen, I mean, I've experienced those things from American white women. Obviously, it's a little bit different for me because I'm a black guy and you're a white guy. But I would agree with that. It gets old. It really does get old, just kind of dealing with their entitlement complexes.
Yeah, there's no. I just feel that because the majority of feminists are white, that message just gets absorbed so much better by them. How feminist can a black woman be? Right? I mean, she might get the basic premise, but at the end of the day, she has black woman problems. Specifically her hair and all the other black women in her life, and so that message doesn't really sink in. Or like a Latina, I'm sure she can be a feminist, but she's in her Latina world, right? And so for her, like, I just feel that that message can't sink in, because there is a cultural barrier. So I think anything that white feminists say, from Bruce Jenner is a beautiful woman with a lovely penis, or any kind of 1 in 4 women are raped, 1 in 2 women are raped. Literally anything a feminist will say, a white woman will just absorb it, and just instantly she just has this affinity for it. Whereas a black woman or a Latina naturally has some kind of distance culturally. So believe it or not, I think a lot of white men see black women as very feminist, but I think it's just a very surface level of feminism. And like, they might have a few catchphrases, but I don't think they really comprehend it enough to make it part of who they are. I think they're a black woman first, and then they'll throw out a few slogans every once in a while.
Gentlemen, you're listening to the Sharp Reality Live with special guest GayLubeOil, the most influential writer on Red Pill Reddit. You can follow him on Twitter at GayLubeOil, just like it's spelled, and be sure to check out his archive over at Red Pill Reddit. If you have questions for either or both of us, ask them in the chat box. My assistant isn't available today, so I'm going to be the one manning the chat. And now GLO, you mentioned something very pointed about the difference between women in terms of race and culture. And if I'm getting this correctly, it would seem that a woman's race, her upbringing, affects her feminist indoctrination. In other words, white girls seem to be more susceptible to feminist ideology than, say, black women or Latinas. Do you on that note, do you think it's because because these women all experience a different America, or is this a conscious decision that they make as women?
I think they experience a different America completely.
Okay.
I mean, black women problems have completely different problems than white women, right? And so if when a white woman's talking about her problems, a lot of black women will be like, "Whoa, I wish I had those problems. Sounds great. Sign me up." Right? And so it's really difficult for them to, jump on board. Like, oh, like I'll give you an example, like mansplaining. You know, like,
Oh yeah.
oh, I was in this business meeting and this white man was mansplaining to me. And how horrible is that? And then a black woman's thinking, oh, I'd love to have that job. Yeah, oh yeah, they can mansplain to me all day. As if I'm in that boardroom making, you're 50 to 70, they can go ahead, girl. Like, send me up.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me how much of a disconnect there is between white women and black women. And listen, this is nobody's fault that they experience a different America. No, white women and black women didn't choose to be born white and black. But it's just like you said. A white girl will be explaining something that happened to her, and a black girl doesn't really key in on those problems because her problems, the issues that she deals with on a day-to-day basis, happen way before then. And it's just like you said, we should all be so lucky to be in a business meeting making 50 to 75K a year and having some dude mansplaining. Like the black woman's not even thinking about the mansplaining part, where she stopped listening, where she started concentrating on, wait a minute, you're making how much, work, and where did this happen? So I think that's part of the big time disconnect. I would also submit to you that mansplaining, that's the feminist version or that's the wannabe feminist version of the female rationalization hamster. And of course, we both know about that. It's so funny how feminists always try to find a direct juxtaposition to their bad behavior and try to put that on us. So there are sluts out there. You and I talk about sluts and how terrible they are. Well, then they turn around and say, "Well, yeah, well, the male version of a slut is a fuckboy." So they've started calling us fuckboys. Or you have the female rationalization hamster, and you're explaining away your bad behavior by rationalizing. So they're going to turn around and say, "Oh yeah, well, you guys do mansplaining." That's just one of the many ways that feminists and feminism has sort of infected these women. Anytime you point out a truth to these women, especially if they know it's true, if what you're telling them rings true, or if they see something that they know is the truth, they'll turn around and say, "Yeah, well, that may be true, but men do it too."
Yeah, it's I think Rollo kind of talked about it. It's kind of a cargo cult of masculinity, and a cargo cult is, I think, a European ship, landed in in some of those Pacific islands, and they saw the Europeans as a god, so they started, like making a ship in the sand that kind of looks like the European galleon, right? And so what you'll see feminists do is they'll kind of imitate masculinity in this weird, disjoined, fucked up way where it doesn't really make sense, or I think the funniest one is where you see a lesbian trying to act like a man, like she's just trying
Right.
to act macho, and I guess what's really funny about that is, lesbians are very aggressive, and if a man was to talk to another man like that, like, you it doesn't matter where you are up on the socioeconomic ladder, like there's a huge chance you're going to get punched in the face. Like, I think I think there's, with men there's always a risk of violence. So if you're dominant, or if you're masculine, that means you're willing to back it up, right? Whereas with a lesbian, she's going to start, escalating on you, and it's like, well, this is cute and all, this is like a little daughter putting on her father's shoes, but you're not a man, and this is a whole act, and I don't believe it. This is fake toughness. And you just see that on all levels, or whatever. They'll just, change a few pronouns, or mansplaining, or manspreading, and it's all kind of cute. But the problem is beta males they just absorb it too, because they're like, oh, if I, absorb your vernacular, can you please have sex with me? And so,
Right, right, right. Listen, man, that's the only reason men and betas adopt this mindset. They're not doing it out of principle. They're doing it because they want to fuck these women. When a man is wearing a "this is what a feminist looks like" t-shirt, he's not really a feminist. He is simply trying to curry favor with these women by adopting their ideology in hopes of getting laid. That's all there is to it. There's no other reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I was going to say, let's get back to the girl you dated in college. How did so you said you met her in your Russian class. How did what about you got her attention? Like, what did you do that attracted her to you, and how did you go about consolidating on that attraction and making her your girlfriend?
Okay, well, I mean, just to clarify, I was what, like 20 years old, right? So the game's different when you're a kid. I was in a fraternity, and I had access to a bunch of fun parties, and so started out just bringing her out to my parties and expanding her social sphere. And I think for any woman, that's really, really exciting. If they start meeting more people through you, they're all aboard.
Right.
And I think that's how it started out. And then, when there's any kind of interracial kind of stuff like that, especially if, people's first time, I'm sure from her side, everyone's asking. And so through that, a narrative gets created, and she just wants to continue that narrative because she's getting all this positive attention. I think,
Right.
I think sometimes a girl dates you, but a lot of times, especially when you're young, a woman dates the idea of you.
Totally agree. Wow, very good. Yeah.
And so I think, I think it's not who you are, it's what you represent in her Facebook pictures, right? And
Yeah. Listen, one of the standard tenets, one of the standard game doctrines is that a woman will never love a man for who he is. She loves what he is. So if you cease to be GLO, then guess what? The girl that you're with is going to lose attraction for you because you are no longer the GLO that she once knew and loved.
right, right. And so I think that's probably one of the most important lessons to remember for young men. Doesn't matter who they date, is that what do you portray? You know, I was speaking with someone else. It's like, can women even really hear what we're saying, or do they just hear our tone and our body language? You know, kind of like animals in that regard. Just like if you go up to your dog and you're like, oh, you're a good little idiot. You know what I mean? Like then the dog's happy. It only understands tone. So I think people are really obsessed with pickup lines, but I think you can pretty much say anything as long as it's sold with the body language and with the tone.
Well, yeah, this is why cult leaders are so. This is why they can fuck whoever in their cult they want to, because even though their ideology is extreme, even like let's just say for the sake of argument that I started a cult that believed in eating dog shit. If I were a dominant, right? If I'm a dominant masculine man, yes, this organization is based on eating dog shit. We're going to eat fucking dog shit. And this is what we believe in. Girls, just like you said, they don't even hear that. All they see is a man who has taken charge, a man who has a strong personality, commands the room, commands respect, and she'll eat dog shit. She'll lick asshole. She'll do whatever she'll do whatever he tells him to do, because she sees a lot more than she hears, and that I believe is what she bases her decision on.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to make fun of women and be like, oh, they don't really analyze the man themselves, right? But if you're a man, right, you're investing very little when you have sex with a woman. So that's kind of like you just buying a burger, right? But when a woman has sex with a man, that's her buying a house. And so because it's such a higher investment, she's not going to rely on herself. She's going to, let's say, bring in contractors and hey, hey carpenter, what do you think about the foundation, talk to the real estate agent, because the decision for a woman to have sex with a man is so much higher in investment. I think they rely more on kind of group knowledge than their own knowledge. And I think we as men do it too, but obviously not in that situation.
Well, listen, to me, and I agree with you, and for another reason, it's simple math. The reason why, when a woman has sex with a man, when there is sex occurring between a male and a female, there is infinitely more investment on the female's part because number one, she can get pregnant. I mean, of course, provided if you guys aren't using protection, but number one, she can get pregnant. But biologically speaking, in terms of procreation, women can only give birth in a finite during a finite number of years, and they can only give birth to a certain amount of babies. Men, on the other hand, we can reproduce until we kick the bucket, so we are much more indiscriminate in terms of women that we sleep with. Well, if a woman sleeps with a man, that's a huge investment, that's a huge decision, and even if she doesn't get pregnant, her sexual attractiveness is much shorter than that of a man. So I think that those are two reasons why women are so much more selective just by nature than men are.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So you meet this girl in your Russian class. What was the first thing you did? When was the first time you noticed that she was looking in your direction?
I just felt like she was just checking me out, right? And it's
Okay. All
and so I just felt like she was checking me out, and for me, it's kind of it was one of those things where okay, I was just going to bring her to my party and see what happens, right? And so you can usually tell if a girl likes you, especially in an intimate setting like that, because
sure.
in a small room, if a girl's holding eye contact, for let's say half a second longer than they usually do, then I mean, you almost have to be an idiot not to notice. And
Of
so,
course. Of course.
this is what, like 2011. So yeah, so I brought her to my party, um, and then she wasn't really in the whole frat scene that much. So that was a big attractor for her. And then
Right.
you know
Expanding her social circle. Women are just like you said. Yeah. If you can expand their social circle, they're all in.
right. And then there's that initial attraction, and then I think with any woman, right, any attractive woman, you have to think like how many other guys are in the picture. Not necessarily who else is she fucking, but like what are her other opportunities? And I think after that initial attraction, you know, once you're in the running, if you want to start dating, you have to beat out those usually three or four other men, right? Um, and so I guess the other, from what I understand, I think I met one of them offhand. They were just silly college boys. They couldn't hold eye contact. They really weren't confident. They didn't lead, and it seems like I won the male competition um,
Okay.
race there. But then the other thing is, as a white man, when you start dating a black woman, right, um, you're gonna get a huge kind of flack from your family and from your friends. You know, not necessarily saying don't do it, but just commenting on it. And so, because you have to kind of push it back in a weird way, it invests you in it, right? Like they have to be like, "Oh, I can't believe you're doing this," and you're like, "Well, it's just a normal person. I don't know what the big deal is," and so you have this conversation in various forms, and sometimes it's it's more negative. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just a comment, but that is it kind of pushes you to invest to kind of prove to them that that
That
you're
you made the
actually
right
committed.
decision. Yeah.
Yeah, that you
Right.
made the right direction. And so I guess what really pushed me into that relationship was I was getting all of these feedback from all the other people, and let's say the relationship didn't pan out, then they would be like, "Oh well, let's see, we told you. That's why we don't date the blacks." And and I think what held that relationship for so long was that. And I think that's kind of fucked up that you would be dating a person because of external social factors. Um, but those college relationships are really volatile, right? They last what 6 to 8 months, and mine lasted a lot longer. And I think from my side, that's partially why, and I'm sure she had that from her side too.
Okay. Now, the main reason I don't fuck with black chicks anymore, and all of this is well documented. I haven't done a podcast on it yet, but I've written 2 articles on Return of Kings: 5 reasons I no longer date black women, and then 5 more reasons I no longer date black women. And I can talk in circles about all of those reasons and delve into that. But the number one reason that I do not date black women anymore, I haven't fucked a black chick in over a decade. And the number one reason for that is because they're simply not feminine enough. They're very masculine in nature. So the black girl that you dated in college, was she feminine?
I thought she was feminine. Well, the thing is, well, first off, she was a lot stronger than other girls. Like, we went to the gym. She was just, I think she could squat 225 within 6 months. At like 140 pounds, I don't know, like 5'8" or something, right? So that was beyond. So, when people talk about racial differences in terms of gaining strength, I believe it, and that's how I became a believer. Yeah, I mean, black women have to try really extra hard to be feminine because they have big Michelle Obama hands, right? So,
right.
Right. And the other thing is, it's kind of like, I don't know if you know the neighborhoods of like, Riverside and San Bernardino. They're very mixed race.
Sure. Oh yeah.
That's where she comes from, and I feel like, I know you're on the East Coast, so the black women of the East Coast, they have.
No, I'm on the West Coast. I live in the state of Nevada.
Oh, okay. Yep. So you're gonna see a very domineering Philadelphia black woman, right? But where our West Coast black women, they're not like that, I guess. Because they spend a lot of time with other cultures. So and I also think that a lot of that aggressive black woman behavior is learned later. I think if you date a black woman and she is anywhere from 19 to 21, you're not. She didn't have time to learn it. But I feel like once they're in their 30s, good luck.
That actually sounds, I totally agree. That actually sounds similar in terms of their bad behavior to white girls. The younger the white girl is that you date, the better behaved she's going to be. But once she hits 30, she's been fucked by 150 dudes. She's probably been married and divorced at least once. She's had at least 1 abortion, maybe 2. She's completely damaged beyond all repair. Well, how that relates to black girls is, yeah, when black girls are younger, they haven't learned it. They don't really know any other way to be except for the way they are. They go through their 20s, they experience their America, they're fucking a bunch of dudes, they're watching Tyler Perry movies. You're a strong black woman. Michelle Obama, who probably has bigger and better traps than even you do, GLO. They're trying to emulate bitches like her. And Michelle Obama, for my money, she's just not an attractive woman. She just isn't. She's not ugly, but she's not attractive. She's manly. She's fucking muscular. I think a lot of times she looks bigger than Barack. And so black women internalize this and think that every successful relationship between a black woman and a black man should be the way it is with Michelle Obama. It's just, I think they're lost, and I agree. The younger the black girl, the more feminine she'll be. But once you're 30. Once she turns 30, it's all over with. Now, after you dated this black girl, have you dated or fucked any black girls since then, or have you not had any other experience?
I just I moved on to I moved on to Latinas from there, and now I currently have a Latina girlfriend who is much more feminine and does not have to worry about growing Michelle Obama traps or so it's and it's I'm not talking about the people. I'm just saying socially. I think socially it's a lot easier to date a Latina because they're like, oh, okay, you have a Hispanic girlfriend, cool, whatever. Like no one, there's no commentary, there's no questions. It's just a lot easier. And then I guess the other thing you got to think about as a white man is, if you're dating a black woman, and you have a mixed race child, right now you got to deal with all the problems that the black community has. Like now all the black problems are suddenly your problems, right? Whereas if you're dating a Latina or an Asian girl and you have, a half Hispanic or a half Asian kid, you're not plunged into uh, what who's that skills boy? Trevor Martin.
Yeah,
I
I
know.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not plunged into the whole
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't want my kid to be profiled in a hoodie, or I don't want my kid to be treated differently. You don't have to. Uh, you don't have to bear that burden that a lot of white fathers in interracial families have to bear. And as horrible as it is to say, it's I think that's probably what keeps a lot of white men far away from black women is because they're like, oh wow, well this whole racism thing you guys talk about all the time sounds pretty shitty. I think I'll just I just won't make that a part of my life. So
I was on with O'Shea Duke Jackson yesterday, and I mentioned something in one of my previous podcast episodes about why parents discourage their teens from interracially dating. And you guys can all go to thesharpreality.com or go to donovansharp.com or hit my YouTube channel if you want to hear that episode. But the two parties that are always the most against interracial dating between a black boy and a white girl is the white father and the black mother. And the reason for that, among other reasons, is that when their children date someone of the opposite race, they are essentially rejecting them as a mother or father. So if a white guy has a white daughter and she brings a black boy home, to him, that's a slap in the face. Same thing with a black woman. When her black son brings home a white girl, that's a slap in her face. What are your, and it sounds to me, and you mentioned the fact that, your friends and family would make offhanded comments here and there about that relationship. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that interracial dating, as far as the parents go, do you think that that's a direct or an indirect rejection of them, or is it something else?
I mean, like let's say you're a traditional black mother, right? Who cooks the black food and is very ingrained in that culture, and now suddenly you have a non-black child, okay? And perhaps you grew up thinking, okay, I'm going to be, collard greens and grits and all this stuff, and now suddenly, you know, you have little Tony running around, right? And Tony likes white things, or you can flip the races around, and it's kind of like I guess they don't know what to do. Like what do you do, right? Or let's say
Right.
you're white, you're Obama's white grandmother, right? And you were expecting to do white things, and now you have this black child, and now he has some black interests, and you know nothing about that, right? I think the classic one is when people have mixed race daughters, they don't know what to do with their black girl hair. Like they have no clue like what to do. And so you can imagine a white grandmother, like how does she braid? Like, I mean, she's completely out of her league. So I guess, on one hand, maybe we can focus on in a negative way. But I think first of all, they're just really confused about it, from a pragmatic standpoint, and then and then later those layers come on. I don't think the racial discrimination is the first thing. It's like, oh fuck, what do I do? And then that negativity is externalized. Does that make sense?
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that you're always going to inherit the issues of the other race, good for better or for worse, really.
Right.
Okay. Gentlemen, you are listening to the Sharp Reality Live with special guest GayLubeOil, one of the most influential writers over at the Red Pill Reddit. You guys can all follow him on Twitter at GayLubeOil and be sure to check out his archive over at Red Pill Reddit. If you have questions for either or both of us, ask them in the chat box, and I will get to that. Here's a question by Nathan Kenny. He says, "What do black men have over Asian men that is to the former's advantage?" So, in other words, what Nathan is asking is what is the perceived advantage that black men have over Asian men? I guess if we're going to stay within the racial conversation here.
They're taller. They're more muscular. Asian men, a lot of them just shuffle their feet and look at the ground all day. And so a lot of Asian men just don't portray confidence, and that's the first and foremost thing, right?
Right.
Like, how are you? my condolences to all the short people listening, because the life.
Sure.
But they have to portray their masculinity in a different way, and it's more challenging. And also, dude, black people are just louder, just in general, than anyone else. I mean, if you were in a university class and there's even a couple of black girls in your university class, you will.
Yeah, they take over the fucking room, dude.
Yeah, and so I think that answers the question.
Listen, to me, it's pretty obvious. I think you said it right there. Black men, I mean, look, we're bigger, stronger, faster than Asian men. We have much more domineering personalities. We're much more confident. And listen, in terms of sexual market value and the sexual totem pole on the female side, the least attractive women in terms of male preference is the black woman. On the male side, the least attractive male in terms of female preference are easily Asian men. I have never.
I think Indians have it the hardest.
Really? Indians? How so?
Because at least an Asian guy, an Asian American, he has this like speech, where it's and it's American speech. But imagine if you have an Indian accent. Or I think the stereotypes that Indian men face are even the most negative. Like like Samir, the Office Space nerd, and
right.
If you're familiar with the manosphere, like the people crying the loudest are the Indians, and I think there's a lot of reasons for it, and even us non-Indian men should really kind of examine their problems and we can use their filter to see problems that we personally don't face. But yeah, I think, to all the Asians listening, at least you're not Indian. And to all the Indians listening, I guess you guys have to work the hardest. But, it's.
That's interesting. The first thing that comes to mind now that you mention it, I think of the show Big Bang Theory. Back in my beta days, I used to watch that show, and I mentioned the character Rajesh Kuthrapali. He is the stereotypical caricature of an Indian living in America, and he is as unattractive as it gets. I mean, the stereotypical body language, the accent, he's not doing Indian men any favors, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's.
I've got a question here, and I guess we'll go ahead and take a turn here. Let's go ahead and talk about running your woman here. I don't want to keep you too much longer because I know you've got other things that you have to do, but in terms of running your woman, in terms of demanding your best, that was one thing that I thought that you and I had in common. I am of the mind that you absolutely you gotta be a control freak. You gotta run your woman. You gotta demand her best. You're the boss. She's an employee. You're the father. She's the daughter. If she steps out of line, you check her. You make sure that she's at her best all the time. What are your views personally on the dynamics between you and you date a Latina girl? What's the dynamic between you and her, and what would you advise our listeners to emulate to make sure that their women stay in line?
I think the first thing you have to remember, is that your woman can choose to have a child whenever she wants. Like, she can just stop taking birth control, bam, have a baby. It's on her, right? And you have no control, right? And so there's a lot of men who are married, or the mothers of their children are just these horrible women. They're fat, they're stupid, they're lazy, and so go to any store and you'll see these monstrosities like barreling down the aisle. And so what I believe is that first and foremost, you're doing her a big favor by not letting her become that, because I feel like that is the default, right? So all of my male leadership comes from, I'm not going to let you become that, and if you want to become that, then this isn't the relationship for you. So you're not leading them for your own benefit. You're leading them for their benefit, and that foundational premise is what makes the relationship strong, because you're not you're not a evil tyrant. You're a benevolent dictator.
Okay.
And then from there, if you look at the red pill, a lot of our boys, they were never taught positive masculinity. Well, a lot of women weren't taught how to be female. They didn't know how to cook. They didn't know how to take care of themselves. They didn't know how to eat, what to eat. And so, just imagine, like, let's say your girlfriend gets pregnant, right? And then she starts putting garbage in her mouth, just
Right.
like processed high fructose corn syrup. And you can't do anything about it because for your, let's say, 5-year or 10-year relationship, you allow that to happen. And now, your little fetus, bro, is bathed in high fructose corn syrup, and he's going to come out, I don't know, at a lower intelligence, IQ than he should. And so I think if it's a serious long-term relationship, you got to be on it, because you don't know if she's pregnant. Maybe she's 1 month pregnant. Maybe she's 2 days pregnant. And
Right.
especially, when there's no signs of pregnancy, right? Really, really early on, that's when I think the food matters the most, right? That's when the health and the nutrition matters the most. And so it's, I don't know, like you don't want a fucked up child, and so you have to lead her woman, and I'm sure there's, let's say, a lot of cost and a lot of work there, but
Sure, but it's worth it in the long run, man. You got to like cost it. Like everything has a cost.
what if
Yes.
what if your kid comes out with cerebral palsy, right? And your woman, she just loves soda and she doesn't work out. Are you going to have that guilt as a man forever for your cerebral palsy child? Like, I don't know. I think that's a really strong motivator, and that's why personally in my relationship, I take my girlfriend to the gym. I make sure she eats well, and I really do my best to expose her to interesting intellectual concepts, because I know there's a lot of mothers who they just say dumb shit forever. Just
Right.
nonstop stupid conversation coming out of their mouth, and it never ends. And I feel like if you don't intellectually challenge your woman, in 10 years, that's what she's going to become. And then you're back into the sorority girl situation where you want to shoot yourself in the mouth.
One of the main things, and I've always said this in my writings and in my podcasts, in order to put yourself in position as a man to be the benevolent dictator, as you put it, in my opinion, aside from the obvious things, you have to be attractive, you have to be domineering, etc. But they have to trust you. They have to trust that you know what's best for them better than they do, because women can say whatever they want. When left to their own devices, they turn into what they are now because they've been left to their own devices. And GLO, they know this. Women outwardly say, I'm strong, I'm independent, I'm intelligent, but at their core, in the deepest recesses of their mind, they know they don't know shit. So when a man like yourself or myself comes along and says, hey, you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and here's why. At that point, if you show them and build that credibility with them, they begin to trust you so that you can become that benevolent dictator. Because I would go one step further. Being a dictator and running your woman like that is not only beneficial to her, it's also beneficial to you. If you don't correct bad behavior, if you don't cultivate good behavior in your woman, you're going to be fucking miserable. And it's just like you said, you're going to be right back at the sorority house wanting to shoot yourself in the mouth because you can't stand the fat chick that you're with.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's,
How do you, early on, let me ask you this. How early on, so when you first get with a girl, how do you establish leadership, dominance, etc.? How do you let a woman know? Because you can't say to a woman, well, look, I'm the one in charge and what I say goes. No, you have to. It's just like we said earlier. Women don't really hear what you say. They see what you say. So what about your actions, your body language, your everyday life? How do you establish dominance with your woman early on?
I think you just start leading, like, for me, I've been a personal trainer, so I always do a gym date. I like gym dates with women because if they flake, you're just back at the gym working out.
Sure.
Nothing lost. But I think you just plan out your dates more. You say, hey, like, we're gonna go here, we're gonna have a picnic. This is what's gonna happen, and You just kind of demonstrate that your leadership leads to positive outcomes for her.
Right. And that's one thing that you guys talk about over on Red Pill Reddit and all around the manosphere. You got to be the leader. Women, when women are in charge of a relationship, they're stressed out because they know that they can't be in charge of a relationship, and it's just unattractive to them. So if you come home and tell your woman, hey, let's go out on a date. Okay, well, where are we going? Oh, I don't know, wherever you want to go. No, guys, that's not the way to do it. Hey, we're going to Outback, or we're going to TGI Fridays, and then we're going to go hit the movies, and then we're going to come home, and then I'm going to fuck your brains out. Women, dude, that gets women's pussies wet because you're a man who takes control and tells her what you're doing rather than the other way around.
I think the manosphere talks a lot about shit tests, and you do too. But I think women want to feel that security that someone is taking care of them. And the more insecure they are about that, the more they're going to test it. And if you go over to the red pill and you look through the questions, you see that their women are not being led. They're not telling their women what to do. They're not bringing them towards positive outcomes. And so those women feel uneasy, and that's why they're testing those boundaries frequently.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question. How would you advise a man to handle bad behavior? How do you as a man, because I know there's a difference between bad behavior and shit tests. So assuming that it's not a shit test, assuming that a woman is exhibiting bad behavior, how do you handle something like that?
I think you have to be mature, and you have to be like, okay, what is the source of this bad behavior? Is she just being a shit for the sake of being a shit? I think that's rare. A lot of it is a manifestation of a negative emotional state. Maybe if it was tough at work, or maybe she's triggered by certain words or concepts. Now she's in a negative mood and she's acting out that mood, right? That's not necessarily bad behavior. And so things like that, if she's hungry, maybe you have to feed her, maybe you have to take her for a walk. And I would, the manosphere, there's a lot of kind of macho-ness sells in the manosphere, and a lot of like, oh, I'm the strong alpha male, like that really, really sells. But the hammer. But sometimes you need a screwdriver of like, okay, my girlfriend's hungry, I need to feed her, or she's been inside all day, I have to take her for a walk. And so I would really, really strongly advise people to analyze what's happening and see if it can be solved, with a little screwdriver first before you start, throwing out ultimatums and playing that whole game.
Sure, yeah. Listen, women never respond well to ultimatums. It doesn't matter who. I mean, it could come from Donald Trump. Nobody responds well to ultimatums. So how do you enforce the rules with your woman? So your woman is displaying bad behavior, and you have figured out at this point that she really is just being a shit. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you've figured out that you have to use the hammer on her. How do you enforce those rules? Or are you just the kind of guy that says, look, I know right now she's just shit testing me for the sake of shit testing me. I've done everything possible to let her know that I'm in charge. She respects my dominance. Now she's just being a bitch. What do you do? Or do you just walk away?
Okay, so the first thing that women are afraid of, right, is social ramifications, right? They really care how they come across in comparison to other women, right? So if she's acting out, your most powerful tool is conveying that she is, of lower quality than other women, or that she's just, like, oh, like, how would other women respond to this behavior, right? And so, one of the favorite places for women to shit test is socially. You're out with your friends, and she's like, oh, well, my man's not going to tell me to shut the fuck up in front of everyone,
Oh my God, I wish a bitch would.
But like, they'll do it in a place where they know that there's mainstream blue pill society, and they don't like that. So in that specific situation, you just make it. You're almost not speaking to her. You're kind of speaking to the crowd, and you kind of portray to the crowd of how ridiculous she is. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And if she wants to play that social game, then you can embarrass her socially. You know, you can if you embarrass a woman in front of other women, like that is
Oh
amazing.
wow, yeah.
And
That,
it only takes a few words, you know. But I guess I'll give you an example. Like it might not even it might not even it might not even come from your woman. You might be getting shit tested from women you're not even socially attracted to. Like let's say you're in a social situation and a woman says, "Oh, like you're being really difficult." Presumably she's a feminist, and you said something
sure.
like a little bit, not politically correct, and you could be like, "Oh, well, I'm sure the most difficult thing that you've done today is put on your pants," right? And like,
I love it.
so that almost that kind of sassiness, those kind of, you're almost poetic, and it has to be done almost through the female communication method, not like you're acting out of line, because our society looks down upon that so much. So I think it really comes down to little jabs socially where you're conveying that, oh hey, you're of lower status than me here, right? And you do it with plausible deniability and stuff. So,
Of course.
but if your woman is acting out for the sake of acting out, you tried all the little tools. I think as a man, you have to be conscious about your time, right? I mean, we all have projects we need to work on. We have articles we need to release, and um, just we need time to think our thoughts so we can, develop our lives. And at a certain point, she has taken up too much of your time, right? There's a threshold of, okay, I had 2 negative hours with her. I did my best. I'm not giving her any more of my time because I
So
need to do
so
something.
withdraw your attention and your time.
Yeah, just say, look, you've been negative all day. You're bringing me down. We can't hang out anymore today. And
That's it.
tomorrow come back, and hopefully it's gonna be better. But at the end of the day, there's things I need to accomplish, and if you're preventing me from accomplishing them, then you know this unfortunately this is how it has to be. I think you can just be completely honest about it. I don't even think
Right.
you have to. I think what's better is if you communicate that way in a neutral tone, then she's gonna be like, she can't accuse you of like, oh, you're being so negative towards me. I think it's really
You
important.
yelled at me. You're being verbally abusive. Stuff like that.
Exactly. So a lot of women will try and get that moral high ground, and if you do have to play that game, make sure to be very straightforward, and be like, look, like, I have to study, and if you're putting on the little grumpy parade, um, you're gonna have to this
Gonna
can't
have
be
to
going
rain on
on.
your parade, right? Like this can't
Yeah.
happen.
So,
That's good. Well, let's
yeah.
go ahead.
So I would really caution people on, use use the least amount of force necessary to resolve it, because she can go back and use you know let's say you really raise your voice, you get really upset, she will use that against you later.
Right.
So so if you understand women, don't give them, we talk about tools that we use to succeed in arguments. Don't give them tools to succeed against you, right?
Right, because and trust me, women have long memories in that regard, and they'll leave out the details. All they'll say, "Oh yeah, well you raised your voice at me." Well, never mind the reason why or what the context was. They can use the fact, and not only that, if a woman knows that she can do certain things to anger you or upset you or to get you to raise your voice, that's a form of emotional manipulation. Even if it's a legitimate reason, she says, oh, so all I have to do is X, Y, and Z, and I can get him all riled up. At that point, now she has control over you, which in turn is unattractive.
The thing I'd point out is, whatever tools a woman is using against you, think about them and use them back against her. Because if she's using a tool, that means she thinks that tool is powerful. And the only reason why she thinks that is because it's powerful against her. So all of that everything that she does, that should be in your arsenal as well.
Okay, I've got a few more questions, and then we can go ahead and wrap this thing up. Reynold, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Reynold Cherry asks, "How do you feel about black girls who are quote not black per se, almost like Stacey Dash in the Clueless movie?" So, in other words, and we talked about this yesterday with O'Shea Duke Jackson. I think it was Angry Man who brought up the point that black women almost have to be like the Valley Girl, the typical Valley Girl type to look attractive to men outside of their race. How do you feel about black girls who are sort of SoCal, Southern California Valley girls? Does that make them any more or less attractive to you as a white guy?
I think in general, to white men, that should make them more palatable, right? Because I think they're more relatable, right? And so and I think that's why they do it. They
Okay.
want to sell to a certain demographic, and if it didn't work, they wouldn't do it.
I agree. And to answer that question, yeah, I think it definitely makes them more attractive. Because listen, even though I don't date black girls anymore, there are a lot of hot and attractive black women out there. Unfortunately for them, they're just not very feminine. So yeah, if they were feminine and they had sort of that California cool Valley girl thing, yeah, I guess I would be more apt to holler at that point. Charles Gilmore asks, Mr. Sharp and GLO, what are your views on monogamy and relationships in general? I'll let you go first.
Um, I think if you have a serious mission, I think if you have a serious job, or you have a trajectory that you're trying to reach, I think monogamy is the way to go, because if you have a lot of those different relationships, you're gonna have all these different women pulling you in all different directions, and I think the beginning of the relationship is the most volatile.
Sure.
So I mean, if you're young, it makes sense to date around because you're 19, you know nothing, and you have no obligations. And I think really the time to get it in has to be between 18 and probably 23 before life, the difficulty meter on the life moves up. So there's a time for monogamy, and there's a time for not.
I agree with you on some level. In the same vein, I do not believe in monogamy. And I think the reason why I don't believe in monogamy and you believe that it's better is because not only have you and I experienced different Americas, we experience the red pill differently. You've always had red pill awareness. I mean, when you started writing for Reddit, you didn't just find the red pill. You had always been red pill. So it's not like you didn't have this awareness. It's not like women weren't responding to you, because from what I understand, you didn't. From what I understand, like just reading your stuff and our conversations, or our conversation in the past, there was no big time heartbreak. There was no, and I'm sure you have had bad experiences with women. We all do. But myself, I've had major bad experiences with women, and I've talked about them on Return of Kings and in my podcast. I rented an apartment for a woman I was trying to sleep with. Paid for everything. Dated one girl who cheated on me with pretty much everybody in the county. Married a woman. I married a woman who committed paternity fraud. Her daughter was not who the father thought it was. She had another man's baby while she was married. And I've been burned countless times. And so in my mind, it's almost like a defense mechanism. I have to fuck other girls to keep that abundance mentality, because the minute I get one-itis, the minute a woman knows that she is my only option, or that I have committed wholly to her, that to me says, okay, well, he's mine. I guess I can slack off now.
I think it's important to have one-itis for yourself.
Okay.
You have to, first and foremost, you're in a relationship with yourself, and you don't want to cheat on yourself and not accomplish your goals, or get what you want out of life, right? And so, um, you know, you're your main bitch, and then whoever you're dating.
Oh my goodness. That's actually a good way to put it. Like, I'm my own girlfriend and you're my side chick. That's how we're gonna treat this. GLL, listen, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks a lot for coming on with me. Like I said, man, I knew from our first conversation, we talked for almost 3 hours on the phone, and it wasn't even planned. But yeah, it was very clear to me that you and I are like-minded in a lot of different ways. And like, when I have guests like you on, I find that I learn just as much from you as our listeners do. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to, of course, teach myself, and of course, being able to teach my listeners. So I really do appreciate that.
Great stuff. I really enjoyed this call, and I look forward to doing it.
Excellent. That does it for this episode of the Sharp Reality Live. Follow me on Twitter at Donovan_Sharp. Visit DonovanSharp.com anytime for all podcast episodes and additional content. You can also find GayLubeOil on Red Pill Reddit. Just do a search for GayLubeOil, just like it's spelled. You can follow him on Twitter at GayLubeOil. You can find TSR on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. And don't forget to do all your Amazon shopping through our affiliate link in the sidebar. GLO, thanks for your time, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.